Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Good Thursday to you. Good day to be in front of the old AC. We have got much more to come. We've got a very strong upper level pressure system covering much of the southeastern part of the nation, and it's going to rule. It's going to be the dominant factor in our weather forecast for days, and you're going to see it when we talk about 90-degree days and heat indices pushing triple digits for a few days in a row. Yeah, just when you thought today was hot enough for you, we've got much more to come, sad to say. And while there is a chance, it's still a slight one for some showers and storms, very slight at this point. The exception to the rule, I think, as the National Weather Service was referring to them, should there be any. So for the most part, hot and dry for the next several days. I'm trying to put a little bit of a sugar coating on that for you. I'll make it a better attempt possibly towards the latter part of our program. Two main topics of discussion this Thursday, in addition to calendar and other announcements. Heroin, one of them, and of course the Supreme Court's decision, which was revealed earlier today and handed down. We'll talk with the two parties involved, or two of the parties involved, attorneys for Representative and Dr. Charles Hardin, Judge Executive, as well as John Montgomery, the challenger. We'll also go over for a few moments in time, a few of the pages of the 45-page decision they returned that will allow Hardin to keep his office. So while we talk about that, in a few moments we'll talk about heroin to begin. It's just getting more frightening and more close to home by the hour. Reported just today, accidental drug overdoses killed 3,050 people in Ohio last year. That's scary enough. What is also scary, over 50 heroin overdoses happened last night, from actually Tuesday morning through last night in Cincinnati alone. 911 receiving calls from all sorts of locations all over the city. One from the bathroom of an ice cream parlor, one from a McDonald's restaurant, another from the scene of a car crash after the man behind the wheel of that car overdosed while he was driving. Several of the victims had to be revived, some even needing more or multiple doses of Narcan. One of those overdose victims, one of those 50 in that 12-hour span possibly, died as a result. Police, as in other cases that I'm about to refer to briefly, still suspect a batch of heroin mixed with fentanyl, carfentanil, or even rat poison that might be to blame for the wave of overdoses. All these ingredients produce a greater high and at the same time a greater risk of overdoses and death, more so than pure heroin itself. The mixture of these drugs have even proven resistant to Narcan. Some cases, as we have seen, have had to use multiple doses, and Narcan, widely known to reduce overdose rates, is not having a great effect against this cocktail. And reported just today, accidental drug overdoses killed 3,050 people in Ohio last year. Folks, that's 8 people a day, as deaths blamed on the powerful painkiller fentanyl again rose dramatically and raised the total overdose fatality rate to a record high. Over one-third of those deaths, 1,155, were related directly to fentanyl, which more than doubled the rate from the previous year and increased from just 75 in 2012. 75 in 2012 to 3,050 last year. And closer to home, police in Mount Sterling say they are investigating 12 heroin overdoses in just 5 hours last night, and one of those overdoses involves death. The police department was frantically doing all that they could, going to social media, Facebook, posting about what appears to be a very potent form of heroin, a bad batch, if you will, urging anyone and everyone, addicts or possibly new users, to be aware of what is a very sad and very deadly growing trend across the United States. We'll have Supreme Court decision coverage next.
For high-speed internet starting at 15 meg for all of your gaming, movie, home, and business solutions, or to watch TV, including your favorite local channels without a contract, with hundreds of channels and digital and HD quality, and to stay connected 24/7 with friends and family, a direct line to 911, or to give your business the link it needs, choose telephone service you know is always there. Just click on their link on this site to find out how affordable the latest technology in communications can be. Foothills Communications.
It's a decision that is now 4 months in the making. The state's highest court, the Kentucky Supreme Court, today has given its decision in regards to the election case of Magoffin County before them. After hearing arguments from the attorneys representing the Magoffin County Board of Elections, Dr. Charles Hardin, Judge Executive, and Republican challenger John Montgomery back in April, a 45-page document today gives their decision, a unanimous one at that, in regards to the outcome of that case. It's a similar decision as to one that was made in a lower court here in Magoffin County back in 2010, when then a special judge ruled that there was evidence of vote fraud, but not enough evidence to remove Judge Charles Hardin from his office. And in doing so, have allowed Judge Executive Charles Doc Hardin to remain in his office, as he has since the first legal challenge brought by John Montgomery shortly after the November 2014 election. An election challenged and disputed before Judge John David Preston in February of 2015, where he vacated Hardin's office, as did the Kentucky Court of Appeals, upholding Preston's decision in April of 2015 as well. With the Supreme Court, however, today unanimously, by a decision of 7-0, ruling that the lower courts had erred in their decision.
Well, we always have been confident regarding this case and this election contest matter, and are pleased with the outcome. Certainly, the Supreme Court decided this case 7-0 in Doc Hardin's favor, and gave a thorough analysis of the allegations in more than 45 pages of writing. We're pleased with the outcome.
Is this an end to this process after what has now been going on since November of 2014?
I certainly believe it's an end. Now, under the rules, I believe that John Montgomery could ask the Supreme Court to rehear the case, but with the decision coming down 7-0, unanimous against him, and with the court having written 45 pages, I don't think that would be well received. He's entitled to under the rules, but I don't think he would go anywhere.
As you and I are speaking, I'm only maybe a fourth of the way through the 45 pages as you referred to, and a portion of that makes reference to John Montgomery's claims that there was vote buying for, not by Hardin directly, but for Hardin with paving, gravel, and cash. And I know that certainly you and your client are very well aware of what has happened in federal court. Does any of that have any gravity on your client or any future as far as his office is concerned?
We're focused on the election contest case that was before the Supreme Court, and that court recognized the federal proceedings. But again, we're focused on the evidence that was presented in the Magoffin Circuit Court with live witnesses almost 2 years ago. We're pleased with the outcome and believe that the case is now over.
On the other side, John Montgomery, the man who says it's definitely not over, who lost to Hardin not just in 2014 but also in 2010. He filed suit challenging that election as well, the end result being that Randy Salyer was sent to federal prison for 2 years on vote-buying charges. Salyer, a current employee of Hardin, after being released, and after losing the 2014 election to Hardin by mere 28 votes, and after today's decision, Montgomery is still very optimistic.
I've been fighting this now through two different elections for going on 7 years. So, this is just a stumbling stone to me. It's not over by any means. I'll fight the corruption till as long as it takes. The real loser in this is Magoffin County citizens, the voters. We're the real losers. I mean, we're going to have to go ahead and foot the bill for this corruption and this everything that's going on down there right on. I don't know what else you'd have to do to prove it. We proved vote fraud, vote buying. We proved all these irregularities, and the Supreme Court just really dropped the ball on this. I mean, they really punished the citizens of Magoffin County, and if our taxpayer dollar is going to keep going to fund this corruption and this conspiracy that's been going on for years, and the Supreme Court's upholding this, where do we go from here? Who can we turn to? We can't turn to the court.
It's a fight that Montgomery vows to continue, and one that he is thankful, he says, to have had what he believes is the majority of Magoffin Countyans on his side throughout, just as he believes he had the majority of honest voters on his side during both elections.
It's been very devastating, really. And it's a terrible expense, not only monetarily, but mentally, even physically. It's been very, very stressful. I just want to thank everyone that's supported me down through the years. It's been a long, hard battle, but it's not over. And just hang in my corner, and right will prevail.
Today's Supreme Court decision was 4 months in the making, which is also roughly the same timetable that exists between now and when Magistrate Gary Rooster Reisner, Larry Shepard, and Tammy Reisner are to be sentenced after being found guilty of conspiracy and or vote buying in the same 2014 election, where a former self-proclaimed insider and part of the conspiracy, Scotty McCarty, claimed that Hardin, the 3 co-defendants, and a slate of other unidentified co-conspirators, as the FBI and federal government referred to them, bought over 300 votes, with Hardin putting up some $30,000 to do so, not to mention the gravel that McCarty and the federal government contend was used to buy votes as well. A 45-page decision. We have a few of those pages selected which shed a consistent light throughout on the decision that was returned by the court, with also a mention and a reference to that investigation and subsequent guilty verdict for those 3 individuals. We'll have that in just a moment. Looking closer at some of the 45-page decision handed down by the Kentucky Supreme Court earlier today, they do note that the appellants in the case contended that the trial court and the Court of Appeals as well nullified the election on grounds that were not set forth in Montgomery's petition to challenge the election, and thus deprived the appellants of fair notice of such grounds, the appellants being, of course, Hardin and the Election Board. And also that contrary to the trial court's conclusions, the election was conducted in a substantial compliance and with the applicable election laws, that any violations of those applicable election laws that occurred in the election were minimal and had no impact on the result of the election, and that Montgomery's evidence was insufficient to prove the illegalities he alleged, and insufficient to prove that the result of the election was affected by any of those irregularities and improprieties which may have occurred. For the reasons stated in this decision by the Supreme Court, they reversed, they say, the opinions of the lower courts, accordingly concluding that Hardin is entitled to occupy his office of McGoffin County Judge Executive in accordance with the tabulated results of the November 2014 election. In today's decision, the court noted that the lower trial court found that corrupt practices in violation of Kentucky law had occurred, in that gravel had been placed by county workers on private property shortly before the election, and that cash payments had been made or promised to 4 voters. The court also determined that statutory procedures for identifying voters at the polls and for assisting voters in need of help were not followed by election officers. This trial court says they also found that the applications for absentee ballots were not properly filled out, and that procedures for casting and counting of absentee ballots were not followed. Ultimately, the trial court determined that none of the individual improprieties and irregularities taken in isolation were sufficient to overturn the election, but that based upon the totality of the circumstances, the election outcome was the result of fraud and bribery, to the extent that neither contestant could be judged to have been fairly elected. Consequently, the trial court set aside the results of the election and declared the office of McGoffin County Judge Executive to be vacant pending a new election. Of course, Hardin and the Board of Elections appealed. A divided panel of that Court of Appeals concluded that the trial court's factual findings were supported by substantial evidence and that it had properly applied applicable election laws to those facts. It affirmed that the annulment of the election and the trial court's judgment vacating the office pending a new election. They granted the appellant's motion for discretionary review. Many of the trial court's findings, says the Supreme Court, concerning vote buying are not supported, though, by substantial evidence, but are instead based upon speculation and conjecture. More importantly, they conclude, that being the Supreme Court, that the trial court's ultimate finding that Hardin's victory was the result of fraud and bribery, such that neither contestant nor contestee can be judged to have been fairly elected, was clearly erroneous. The Supreme Court says they are also persuaded that Montgomery failed to meet the burden of affirmatively demonstrating such fraud, intimidation, bribery, or violence in the conduct of the election that Hardin cannot be adjudged to have been fairly elected. As demonstrated, says the Supreme Court, once the trial court's factual findings are adjusted to exclude its clearly erroneous determinations, it is seen that the instances of irregularities and malfeasance that were shown are simply not enough to demonstrate that those factors are sufficient to negate Hardin's 28-vote margin victory. And in summary, they end by saying we agree with the assessment of the dissenting judge in the Court of Appeals decision that the evidence presented is woefully short of that required to warrant judicial intervention and voiding this election. They also say in conclusion that public confidence is free and fair elections is vital to the body politic of every community in this state and nation, and that while corruption in the casting and counting of votes, as was alleged in this case, certainly undermines the integrity of election results, it is not the only threat that we must guard against. The Supreme Court wrote that equally corrosive to the public's trust in fair elections is the destabilization of election results that would occur if we cast aside election results for trivial reasons or unsubstantiated accusations. And they say, quote, we avoid both threats and preserve public confidence in elections by imposing a rigid statutory framework to regulate voting and the counting of votes before the results are determined, and by maintaining a judicial policy that demands pervasive evidence of corruption to challenge the integrity of election results after the votes are counted. Ending by saying the contestant failed to meet the burden of affirmatively proving fraud, intimidation, bribery, or violence in the conduct of the election, and consequently they are bound to sustain the results as certified by the Board of Elections. They therefore reverse the opinion of the Court of Appeals and remand this case to the Magoffin Circuit Court with directions to dismiss the election contest petition, to enter an order authorizing Charles Hardin to assume the seat of Magoffin County Judge Executive to which he was elected, and for such other proceedings as necessary to implement the mandate of this decision. There is one other note that we must include in tonight's reporting, and it was actually included in a footnote in the factual and procedural background of this. The court also noted in page 2 that, quote, we are aware of the recent proceedings in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Kentucky, in which a jury returned verdicts convicting Magistrate Gary Reisner, Tammy Jo Reisner, and Larry Shepard, husband of appellant Renee Arnott Shepard, of vote buying in connection with the 2014 election cycle, including the Magoffin County Judge Executive race, which is the subject of today's opinion. Our analysis is properly limited to the evidence in the record before us. We cannot consider evidence that may have been available to federal prosecutors but was not presented in this action. The recent criminal convictions have no bearing upon the issues that we address. And there you have it. For now, we don't know what the next step will be for either of the parties, should there be one. But we will certainly be the first to let you know, and to let you know the most. I'll be right back after this message or two. Community calendar and other announcements, and a hot one looking down the line at the forecast. Stay tuned. One announcement I don't have on the calendar, but that you'll certainly want to make note of for next week. The employees at Rumpke, they have a mandatory meeting in Knott County Wednesday, so customers, your garbage on Wednesday for Wednesday pickup will be collected extra early. So you might want to put it out the night before because they're running extra early for Wednesday only of next week. Here are the rest of your Magoffin Farm Bureau community calendar announcements.
First, a big birthday wish to a now 7-year-old Hagen May with a whole lot of love for Mommy and Daddy and family and friends, and we want to say happy birthday too. Hagen's birthday was yesterday, but due to a little human error on behalf of this human, I couldn't get the picture on, and it just wasn't near as cute of a birthday wish without the picture. Let's just be honest. Happy 7th birthday, Hagen May. Heritage Day starts officially next Wednesday. We'll go over that list of events a little later on down the line between now and then. What you need to know now is one last reminder that sign-ups for the baby and children pageants start tomorrow evening, 4 to 6. There was Saturday from 11 till 2 and Monday from 4 to 6, all at the Magoffin County Historical Society. If you got any questions, call 349-1607. A reminder to eat good and eat cheap with the Middle Fork Volunteer Fire Department. Their deep-fried Oreos and other famous snacks and treats will be available in front of the Sagersville IGA this Saturday from 10 to 3. All the meals are just $5. That includes a drink. What else do you need to know? Revival at the Wright Middle Fork Baptist Church coming up this Sunday night at 6. It will continue thereafter nightly next week beginning at 7 with Farley Howard and Jim Howard preaching. And this is your invitation. A special book signing Tuesday of next week at the Magoffin County High School in the library. Student authors and illustrators will be signing and selling the books they created with the ARI Book Writing Project, and you are invited to join them. We're going to try to get a camera there before it's over because we think it's just a great afternoon to spend with some very talented students. And Big Sandy Wings have put together a bike show. That's right, all bikes can be registered and we're told ride in the parade. That's next Saturday for the Heritage Day Parade, and they're going to have a bike show leading up to the parade. It's going to be in the Logan Corporation, a.k.a. Joy Mining parking lot, from 10 till 12:30 for the bike show. They hope you'll join them and then take a little trip down through the parade. It is for Heritage Day. It's a $10 fee to enter to the show and then take a little trip down the parade, and you're invited. If you have any questions, call 434-1856. And you're always invited to use our calendar anytime you've got an announcement like you just heard. All you have to do is send it in. In funeral service announcements this evening, we have one, a listing for 78-year-old Ron Wireman of Florida, formerly of Magoffin County, who passed away on yesterday's date. The Magoffin County Funeral Home tells me that arrangements are incomplete at this hour, but they will be announcing them soon, once again in honor of 78-year-old Ron Wireman. And lastly tonight, a look at a hot one. Yes, continuing right on. 69 tonight, mostly clear skies, and you can also expect to see a little patchy fog late tonight and early in the a.m. as well. And tomorrow, sunny and hot, while the daytime high will again get right real close to, if not just a tick or two above 90. With the heat index, it will feel closer to 98, 99 degrees. It's going to be sunny and hot and clear across the board tomorrow. And for your weekend, that just about sums it up as well. In fact, look for 92 or so on your Saturday, and that means the heat indices once again will be pushed up into the upper 90s. Sunny and hot and only a few partly cloudy skies above with a nighttime low of 70. And no change for the latter half of your weekend, Sunday, mostly sunny and hot. We do have right now, the latest update is showing a 10 to 20% chance of some showers on Sunday, early Sunday. I'm just going to leave that out for now. It's still possible. I think that we do have a better shot of some showers going on into the first of next week with some thunderstorms possible after that. But it's a slight chance. It's just going to be super dry and super hot for days all the way through Tuesday. Maybe even maybe Wednesday, but definitely through Tuesday of next week. The chance of showers between now and then, just about void.
That's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Join us tomorrow, and we'll wrap it up for this week. I'm sure we'll have something interesting and informative to pass along, as do we always. Thank you for being a part of the program, and have a good night.